It's the final wrap of Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar, and it comes kind of silk wrapped because that is a card that has been huge this weekend, Brian David-Marshall, and in the end we had a terrific day of top 8 action.
Yeah, absolutely. Battle for Zendikar was introduced into the standard environment. Theros and all of its assorted goodies were pushed aside into modern. We'll deal with them at the next Pro Tour. And a new season started. People's goals set anew, and here we are at the end of the first leg of the 2015-2016 Pro Tour season.
All right, so why don't we take a look at our top 8 bracket and show you what went on here in the cauldron of the feature match area. Well, we began down at the bottom here with Ricky Chin, not only in his first Pro Tour top 8 BDM, but in his first Pro Tour full stop.
Yeah, a player from Quebec, played Magic for about a decade, maybe a little more. About 2 years ago said, wow, I'm beating up on everyone in my local store. Time to go play on the Pro Tour. And 2 years later, here he is with a Pro Tour top 8. His buddy Max, who came here with him, went 8-8, also made day 2. So, you can do it. They didn't have a super team. It was really just 2 buddies who qualified through an RTQ, went to the Pro Tour, and both of them made day 2. Great story. Quebec City Grand Prix next week. You can see Ricky Chin and Max Auger there.
Find out how they did it.
Yeah.
All right, so Chin was against Ryoichi Tamada from Japan, and it was 3 amazing games of Magic. You should go back and watch that. That was arguably the best game of the day. It was Tamada who made it through into the semi-final. Quarterfinal 2, John Finkel against Paulavita Damarosa. Was meant to be amazing, it wasn't. Shall we move on?
We should talk a little bit about the star power there. It was not a matchup where Paulo was favored to be the winner. By all accounts, John was expected to win this match. He just wasn't expected to win it without Paulo having the resources to put up much of a fight in game 2.
Yeah, Paulo mulliganed to 5 and was never really in it. So it does mean that John Finkel, arguably the best player of all time, advanced.
15 Pro Tour top 8s. The argument could also be made about Paulavita Damarosa that, he's the 3rd or 4th best player of all time.
Yep.
2nd best player of all time. He's in that mix.
10 Pro Tour top 8s.
The exclusive double-digit Pro Tour top 8 club.
Amazing. But John Finkel advanced to the semi-final. Well, we had another Japanese player in quarterfinal 3. That was Kazuyuki Takimura against one of your favorite newer players on the Pro Tour scene, Martin Muller.
I started talking to Martin Muller before the World Magic Cup last year when I was interviewing various team members. Sort of up-and-comer, goes ahead, wins the World Magic Cup with Team Denmark, and has a great year on the Pro Tour. But, didn't get a chance to play in the first Pro Tour of the season last year. Kind of didn't really know anybody, wasn't prepared to go to Hawaii, whatever happened, and only had 3 Pro Tours once he finally got that World Magic Cup and fell 1 point short of gold. Came into this Pro Tour as a silver pro.
So this is the one-shot deal for him.
Yes, he could have one more match win at Worlds, would have gotten him gold. It was like one of these things where he had an empty Grand Prix slot on his resume, one more Grand Prix day 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and just but starts off here with a Pro Tour top 8. He's going to be at the World Magic Cup again, by the way, in a couple weeks. So is Tamada, worth mentioning, and just a phenomenal showing from him.
It was, but it ended in the quarterfinals because Kazuyuki Takimura
I used the past
went
tense.
through. Indeed. And that left Paul Dean against Owen Turtenwald. Now, last round of the Swiss, Owen had essentially tried to knock Paul Dean out to create a slot in the top 8 for people like Reed Duke.
Oddly enough, out of friendship, not out of animus.
Oh, absolutely. No, and a perfectly valid play.
Yeah.
And Owen did indeed beat Paul Dean in the last round last night.
And it seemed like Paul Dean was going to be on the outside looking into the top 8. Right. But you know what happens when Owen Turtenwald beats you? Your tiebreakers get better.
Right. And by 0.06%,
wow,
Paul Dean got to come back. And as it turned out, he got to play against Owen Turtenwald. And as it turned out, he got to beat Owen Turtenwald.
Easily the upset of the weekend.
Right. Because, Owen was a clear favourite, partly in matchup, but also on resume and skill, because Owen is widely regarded as the best player in the world right now, maybe.
Paul Dean made a tremendous impression, though, on everyone he made. How he handled himself, both in that situation in the last round, gracious in defeat and gracious in victory in all of his interactions with Owen and all the players around him. I think he made a great impression. Looking forward to seeing him for a while more here on the Pro Tour.
All right, so we get to our semi-finals now. So we had Jon Finkel up against Ryoichi Tamada, and, well, game 2.
Sorry, did I say the upset of the weekend before?
You mentioned something like that.
I don't know if I leave it to the viewer to decide which is a greater upset, but Ryoichi Tamada, after going down a game to Jon Finkel, went to his sideboard, pulled 13 out of 15 cards out of his sideboard, put them in, and transformed his Jeskai deck into a Jeskai control deck with Mastery of the Unseen. Left Jon with a number of cards in his hand that were not suited towards that matchup, and he was able to run away, eventually take control of game 2, and in game 3, had the right answers for a turn 3 and a turn 4 Tasigur from Jon Finkel's deck, and Tamada, made quite the impression on everybody as he advanced to the finals past Jon Finkel, the Pro Tour Hall of Famer, greatest player of all time.
Just superb by Tamada. And the thing is, it wasn't that Finkel did anything wrong. It was that the Mastery of the Unseen left him with no right choice to make. That was what was so startling.
He sideboarded expecting a certain deck. He brought in a card like Exert Influence.
Right.
He brought in Radiant Flames.
Let's kill your creatures. Let's steal your creatures.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't have creatures.
Yeah.
Kind of. It was just beautiful to watch from Tamada, and really kind of marked our cards for how good he is. That left the opportunity for an All Japan final, but first standing in the way was Paul Dean, the number 8 seed from Canada. So they went at it, but again, pretty straightforward. Kazuyuki Takimura got the job done, 2-0.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we determined that it was Worlds 2006 the last time we had a Japanese all Japanese Pro Tour final, and that's what we ended up with today as Takimura advanced here to fight Tamada. 5-game set. It went all the way through. It was kind of interesting. We talked about this a little bit, but it was Jeskai versus Abzan in the finals of the Pro Tour, which is supposed to be allies versus Eldrazi.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting. We saw tremendous impact on both the decks from how the new battle lands interact with the old fetch lands, and lots of new cards and a lot of cards that got unlocked in the previous set. You mentioned Silk Wrap at the beginning of this. Silk Wrap was a huge card all throughout the weekend that was not really highly played in previous standard formats, but has become huge now.
Right, and Unoffensive the Foremost certainly rose in value and use here this weekend. So we got an All Japan final. It went the distance. Tamada was 2-1 up.
And then we have to talk about game 4, because Tamada was mulliganing and went to 6 cards, and he drew his 6 cards, and there were no lands there. And he kept it.
Yeah.
So I went and talked to him, actually.
Right.
After the match, I said, listen, I have to ask. Just please tell me what happened. And he said, look, I did not want to go to 5. I never in a million years would have done this under the old mulligan rule, but with the Scry mulligan rule.
Right.
He's like, look, I just thought, I was on the draw. I get, to scry. I just didn't think I could do it with 5 cards the way my deck was set up. So I took a chance, and it didn't work out.
Right, so a totally coherent plan. He had a loss to give as well, because, he was looking, obviously if you've got just spells, well, you've got plenty of spells to work with, so if you can get the land, you're in great shape. As you say, it didn't work out, it forced game 5, and in game 5, well, it was time for Kazuyuki Takimura to shine. And in the end, by 3-2, Kazuyuki Takimura is your champion of Battle for Zendikar. And if we take a look here are the last moments. There he is, the champion of Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar, Kazuyuki Takimura. He becomes a Platinum Pro BDM, not just for the rest of this season, but all of next. So we will see that man on the Pro Tour for the next 2 years. Phenomenal.
We'll see him at the World Championship in 2016 as the second person to clinch a berth. Seth Manfield clinched the first berth for the World Championship, and now Takimura will be joining him as the second competitor in the World Championship.
Great stuff. We hope you've had a wonderful Pro Tour weekend with us. We certainly have with you. It's been great here. In the end, it was all about Japan, and Kazuyuki Takimura emerges as your champion. Let's do it all again very, very soon. But until we do, for all the Wizards of the Coast family, on behalf of Brian David-Marshall, I'm your host, Rich Hagan, saying bye.